Hello, hello,
Hello,
hello.
we are here once
We
again.
are here.
Right, so today we are continuing our series on myth busting in history, for these abound everywhere and tend to get repeated as gospel on numerous occasions. Today, prepare yourself for incandescent rage, everybody.
Incandescent.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah. Gird your loins.
Yes, yes.
Hold
Now,
onto your
before there's
pants.
any talk about anger, swearing, or more talk about loins, I think, Kat, do it, do it, do it, do
Hi.
it, do it.
Do it. Welcome to History After Dark. We called it that, let's be honest, because we like to swear. And we don't do that on our other platforms. So we wanted to create a place where we could let our freak flags fly, do four-letter expletives, innuendos, general filth and vulgarity. So if you are in an open plan office with a judgmental boss, put a headphone in. If you are in a cabin in the woods, or perhaps a portaloo, or maybe even a yurt with a small child who is a problem, we call this child Timmy. There we go. The mugs are out. Timmy's, we've got merch, babes. It's great. Timmy's a problem. Timmy is the sort of child that hears one depraved thing one solitary time, says nothing, locks him in his mind palace, takes him to school with him, repeats it in front of his teacher, who in my head is Miss Honey from Matilda. She does not watch History After Dark. She wears sundresses and is pure as a drink of snow, right? She is not like us, bless her. Mostly, she's not like me, certainly, because I'm sure her tits are close to her earlobes and her knees. Swings and roundabouts. We are who we are, all right? Don't judge. Anyway, Miss Honey does not watch History After Dark, and so she does not know the first cardinal rule of History After Dark, which is if you don't know what it means, don't Google it. So she Googles it, and now she is in a fetal position in the corner, rocking back and forth, non-verbal, suboptimal if you are a primary school teacher. And so you've been called up to school. Why does Timmy know this thing? They're calling the social services. No one needs that. And on top of that, you're now on the hook for however many weeks of therapy it's going to take to get her upright, verbal, and not weeping. No one needs it. Put a headphone in. With all that being said, I think it is very clear what today is going to be like. So at no point should anybody come into these comments, nor into our other social media comments, and say anything along the lines of, I very much enjoy History After Dark, but must you swear so much? It's very unbecoming of ladies. First of all, yes, we all must swear because we're going through it, all right? And it makes us feel better. Leave us alone. Let me say fuck off in peace. Second of all, we aren't going to do what you want, which is pin that comment so that people can come in and humiliate you publicly, because that's your kink, right? And look, I'm not going to kink shame you. They might. But what I am going to shame is kink without consent. If you want to go and see my friend Verity in her Brighton basement with her wipe clean walls and 18 car batteries that are wired for bass, she will do unspeakable things to every orifice on your body. But guess what? You will pay for the privilege and you will get to somewhat pick what you get to do. She does occasionally listen to safe words. Depends on how she's feeling, though. It's a bit of a risk. It's like roulette with the car battery with young Verity in the Brighton basement. But guess what? That's kink with consent. I really hope, after all of what I've just said, that you are all adults at this point. So you can do what you want. Nevertheless, we will never approve this being a drinking game. This will never be medical nor legal advice. Please don't sue. This is History After Dark, and I'm about to get really, really cross. What are you talking about, Catherine?
So Kat is talking about the myth that people in history, in the old days, to varying degrees,
it was all black and white.
Well, literally, because they were all dirty and minging and filthy and didn't wash, and everyone smelled, and they thought it was a great time, and they were allergic to water, and it was all the rage to just be a complete minger.
Thank you. Yes, this is a personal bugbear of mine, and has been for years. It is something that I wax lyrical about in various heritage sites. It's one of the myths that I am constantly correcting, and I enjoy doing it. However, there's a couple of reasons why it is in this series when we were deciding it. First of all, I saw the promo image, some of the promo images for the new, is it a biopic? Is it historical fiction? Whatever. It's dealing with William the Conqueror, right? Wonderful. Now, in this image, he was crowned on a throne for some reason with a dirty neck. You are being crowned. You found a throne, but haven't had a chance to wash your neck. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Also, I have seen some on social media, what I'm terming, I think other people are terming, hygiene wars, a notion that people in the past, and thus culturally people today, come from a lineage where they weren't clean, where they didn't wash, and they had to be taught to wash by other people. This narrative, this conversation is, I believe, being engineered by individuals who want us in dispute. But I want to point out that it's a very sticky path to start talking about certain communities of people being, by heritage,
Dirty.
I see.
Watch what is happening. Be careful about engaging in that kind of discussion, because it leads places I don't think anybody wants to go.
These discussions always start with like a assertion.
Yeah.
And then the argument comes after the assertion. And no one questions where that initial assertion comes from, which I'm assuming is what you will do today.
And I think it's you get this, there's that famous quote that Elizabeth I says that she bathes once a year or 4 times a year, even though she doesn't need to. And so there's this notion that she is stinking and she must reek because she's got black teeth and all of the rest of it. So let's think, and I want to be very specific. I am talking about what I know about the history of bathing, predominantly in England and potentially even more locally in London, with, of course, some extensions out of there. So let's start. Roman Britain. We have been a colonized people, and as the Romans come over, they change the way that life is lived. We have aqueducts, for example, piping water into different places. Parts of our country are formed, cities develop because of hot springs, namely, unsurprisingly, Bath.
Droitwich Spa.
Funnily enough,
anything with Spa, Buxton, Spa.
Leamington Spa.
Leamington Spa.
Exactly. Because the Romans are using hot springs or aqueducts to pipe water so that they can have, sometimes in their own homes, baths, but also public bathing. Because public bathing is a place to socialize, to do business, to get clean, to relax, etc. So the Romans have got, in their bathhouses, they're going to have a tepidarium, a warm room. Then they're going to have a caldarium or a caldarium, a hot room. In those places, slaves are going to rub them down with olive oil. And then they're going to get a sigil and scrape the oil off.
It sounds like a great idea, this is. I wish you could have this done now.
Yeah. I'm sure. Do you know what? I'm sure that there are some places doing something very, very similar.
Yeah, but I bet you have to
I bet Verity would do it.
Yeah, but it costs you a fortune.
Well,
no doubt. So then you go through all of this, and then you go into a cold room, a frigidarium, and you have a kind of cold space, and then a plunge cool bath. So there's this perception that I think you're opening up the pores of the body, you're putting oil on it, you're scraping out the badness, and then you're closing your pores up. When we think about bathing, and as much of bathing in the history of our nation, it's going to be affected by how we understand the health of our body, so the humours of our body. The notion that your body is leaky, both for things for ingress and for egress, is, I think, something that we perhaps don't fully conceive what that's going to mean. Not that we don't have myths about how the pores of our bodies work. The countless things you're going to see on social media of let's open up the pores and then close the pores. That's not how skin works.
No, they do that.
Not...
They used to do that with cleansers and toners, wasn't it? Cleansers would open your pores, toners would close your pores, and like,
yeah,
I don't think no.
That's not how skin works. And steaming, steaming your face, pores don't open and close in that way. You can't clean out pores in that way. So even today, there are massive amounts of misinformation about our skin and cleanliness and skincare. For example, things talking about things penetrating the skin barrier and providing medical grade plumping and blah blah blah. If it's passing the skin barrier, it almost always needs to be on prescription. Some of the things that, for example, collagen, that molecule is too big.
It's not going through your skin. You need it inside
to ingest it. Yeah,
it's not going through your skin.
Block as opposed to
So we are still in the world of, probably arguably even more so in the world of disinformation. Here, there is a misunderstanding. In the past, there's a misunderstanding of how bodies and health is functioning. Now, it's actively disinformation to make us buy more stuff that we don't need. So
there was a product once that we just mentioned this. I think it was made by, no, I better not say who it was made by, but I don't think it exists anymore, but they named it Boswellox. Now, does that not sound too close to bollocks?
It does.
And it was
supposed to say Botox, but both were.
Yeah. So that was what obviously they were, ostensibly going for. But I heard Boswellox and just thought, bollocks. As in, like, it's rubbish. As in, we know it's rubbish and we're misleading you. Anyway.
Yeah.
I thought you might like that, because that was quite a while ago as well.
So, but what I'm talking about now is people did not... This is not people being missold. This is people misunderstanding. They, in the humoral body, where you have the four humors, blood, black bile, yellow bile, and phlegm, health is achieved when these things are in the appropriate balance. Dis-ease or ill health are caused by these things coming out of balance. The ways in which your humors are balanced or unbalanced relates to, for example, your own disposition, the month you're born, the age you are, the food you eat, the things that you touch, and the air around you. So, bad smell. We'll get onto miasma in a minute. So the human body is perceived to be leaky. So full submersion into warm water is seen by some people, and increasingly, as a risky potential. That doesn't mean you don't do it. Just because there are dangers attached, it means you have to do it carefully. And they have ways and means to be careful, and what you need to do so that your bathing doesn't endanger your health and is actually is a health benefit, a net benefit.
So we've seen a medicalization of bathing.
Yes, but then so is eating at this time. Everything is medical. And I think what we have to also add on to this with the humours is that on top of this, so cutting your hair is humoral, potentially. It's medical. That's why barbers and barber surgeons, there's a connection. So what comes out of your head, white hair is privileged because of the humoral balance. Red hair, you're potentially more choleric or sanguine or whatever else. So the way you look tells you how your humours are working.
Wow.
So all of these things, your physician's going to smell your pee, drink your pee, all of it. They're going to look at the hair growing out of your face or your head or your body.
If I can help it.
Well, you don't know what they do when they take your sample away.
Strange things again, yeah.
But and what's also important to remember is that your outward appearance, as well as being indicative of your physical humoral health, we also know, don't we, that it's indicative of your moral character.
Right.
So there's a reason why being fair-haired and fair-complected, particularly in England, is seen as being a benefit. And that is because if you are light in skin and hair and eyes, then that means that you are perhaps, particularly for women, of a temperate nature. That
More angelic.
more angelic, that you're calmer, that you might
Look what colour everyone's eyes are. Philippa's
dark.
blue.
Oh, it's
I
the pits of
wanna
hell.
This is panning out here, people. Now I don't know what you're going to make of this. Mine change colour.
Oh, you got green eyes.
Green, or they go anywhere from like quite fairly mid-brown to green. Then they change, and my kids got it as well.
Yeah.
And they interestingly, they all tend to change the same. So like so I don't know what it is, but if
Are you
we
like an
all
octopus?
colour
Do you like blend into?
in another life, I was in fact an octopus.
No, because Gabriel's got green eyes, and it changes based upon temperature outside, whether he's hungry, whether he's thirsty.
I've
Like
not
it
noticed mine change colour, but
is a mood ring. Green eyes for sure.
Actually, do you know what? That's a
I'm
really
not
good
sure.
word. If I'm having a lovely day, they'll be like quite green, and if you need to avoid me, they'll be brown. I'm going to monitor that now.
we're gonna you have to send us a photo every morning before you send us a message, and we'll decide whether we're going to listen to it or not.
We're going to just mute the chat.
Is developing here. So,
Green
well,
eyes
yes,
go.
it makes sense anyway.
This I think is where I sort of want to draw a connection, particularly as we get into medieval and early modern England, is that your physical appearance denotes your health, your humoral health, but also your moral health, your soul's health. So when we have this phrase, cleanliness is next to godliness, there is a real truth in that for these people. And I think that's really vitally important to remember. As late as the 19th century, though, historians were asserting that after the fall of the Roman Empire, there were just no baths for 1,000 years. No baths. So this is where some of this myth making comes from. It comes from essentially people like us going, the fall of the Roman Empire, everything buggers up. But this completely forgets that large parts, for example, of south of the river were known as the stews, the bagnios. They're called the stews because they're bathhouses. People are literally stewing in warm water. And these Roman baths, lots of them, that technology does sort of get damaged in the intervening time. But then people start going on crusade. And so they bring back technology they've seen over there. And they already have pre-existing water courses and things like that. So this is happening in this country. There are certainly baths happening in the 1,000 years after Rome. That happens. People are going to bathhouses. People are also bathing in their own homes. Now, look, bathing in your own home is a palaver for much of history until we get plumbed in water. When we're talking about Elizabeth's alleged 1 or 4 baths a year, what that looks like is her servants setting up a wooden tub, lining that tub with linen, loads of linen cloths, then getting warm, scented water in sufficient quantity, so bucket after bucket after bucket, filling that tub in a room which is appropriately warm so that she won't become unwell. Elizabeth will then submerge herself in that. She may well wash her hair at the same time. So the various concoctions you're going to use to clean the hair, to clean the body, to clean the nails, etc., etc., it's all happening. She would then be helped out of her bath, be wrapped in linens and sat by the fire to dry for her humoral body to become less leaky, for that to kind of close up properly, for her hair to dry, to be styled, to go through it with a lice comb. All of this stuff. And then some poor bugger or group of buggers is going to have to drain that sodding bath.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Filling it up is not quite as hard.
Right. But let's not forget that my grandmother was bathed in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
They didn't have plumbed water. There was a bath in the a tin bath would come out in the kitchen, in front of the fire, in front of the hearth. It'd be filled with water from the copper, and you'd bathe in that.
Mm.
And to be honest, in the old kind of palatial piles of Downton Abbeys, the real ones, of upstairs, downstairs, even when the American heiresses are coming over, they're horrified there's no plumbed water, and that some servants got to put their bath water in that way, because in these really old houses, plumbing them in is dangerous. These pipes burst, and when you've got a full fleet of servants to do it for you, why bother?
Yeah, because you see the Victorian era where they're putting in tanks. Dunster Castle, for example, the old motte. You can actually go inside it. That was the water tank which was put in to pipe water back down into the castle.
Wow.
So yeah, it doesn't have it for a long time.
Yeah, and for some like big old piles, it's not happening until sort of the end, really, until service starts dying out with the wars. You know, there are in the same way that they're still weighing up, are they going to go to electric or are they using gas? Like the when you have people to help you, Elizabeth I is a great example of this. So her godson, Naughty Harrington, invents essentially the first flushing toilet, but it's a novelty. And Elizabeth could absolutely go, I want a flushing toilet in every place I stay in. This is brilliant. But it's not for her, because it means she has to go somewhere to do her business. Whereas she's the queen with a fleet of servants. If she has to go a tinkle, she doesn't need to go through 5 rooms. She calls someone to bring her a piss pot.
Yeah.
This doesn't mean she's dirty. It means that she has other people to deal with her stuff. So even if you are not doing full body immersion, you are still washing yourself every day. Now, whether you are going to your local stream to do this, or whether you are the Queen of England, someone is bringing you, in that case, a basin and a ewer. And that's something else that is in Victorian and Edwardian homes and beyond, a basin and ewer on the stand. This is going to be, and it's happening in the medieval period too, and indeed before. For the very elite, you're going to have whatever popular perfume of the time is in warm water. And your servant is going to hold this basin out for you. You're going to wash your hands in the scented water. You're going to use a cloth to wash your face, your neck, essentially all the bits that the light touches. But beneath your clothing, and you may also wash down your pits and bits. However, you may have less of a need to do that on a daily basis because you're wearing full length linen against your body. You're sleeping on linen sheets. Your hair is covered in a linen coif to sleep. You may also be wiping your hair in between washes down with bits of linen. And also, if you're a woman, your hair is dressed every day. So it's up and out of the way. Linen is fabulous for absorbing oils and sweat. So if you are elite and some other person is washing your linens, you might be changing your undergarments 4 or 5 times a day. That sweat is being wicked away, or as many times as you want. You know, so, and if you were in the process, if you felt unclean, you might wash your neck again with somebody bringing you warm scented water. At meal times, someone brings a basin ewer, you wash your hands at the table. You have a diaper cloth on your shoulder. Diaper is the kind of, it's a thickly kind of made fabric. Diaper work is got diamond patterns on it. So when you go to Hampton Court and you see the brickwork where they've got the black bricks in a diamond pattern, that's also called diaper work. So it looks the same. So you wash your hands at the table in front of people. So hygiene is absolutely happening. People do try and take care of their teeth. Nobody wants tooth pain. If you look at the bills of mortality, people start dying from the teeth. Now, that could mean one of 2 things. It could mean that, sadly, a small child dies at around the time of teething, which we might now call SIDS or cot death. But because what's happening when the teeth are coming in, it may be they are conflating those two things and they're saying that child has died of the teeth. Equally, as everybody I believe here knows who's had a tooth infection, you don't want that. And but also without antibiotics, that shit can become fatal really fast. Now, the issue is that they perhaps don't have the best techniques when it comes to cleaning their teeth. They would use linen cloths to rub their teeth clean. They would use sticks that they've sort of chewed and frayed to clean their teeth. To remove staining, because they do care about that, they would use perhaps brick dust.
Ooh.
Or
so it's
like powder,
a bit rough and
abrasive.
Yeah. Maybe powder from shells.
Ooh.
Now that would take the stain off,
but it was also some of the enamel.
Absolutely, it does. To make their breath sweet, they would use something called kissing comforts, which are perfumed in later years sugar.
Yeah.
When sugar starts being imported into this country, it's a medicine at first, and then it's a delicacy. So Elizabeth's teeth aren't black because she doesn't brush them, but she loves sugar to eat. She might be brushing her teeth or perfuming her breath with sugar. And she's also potentially eroding the enamel of her teeth with the way she cleans her teeth. That's why her teeth look the way they do. Not because she doesn't care about how her breath smells, but perhaps because she's using the wrong techniques, and also she's eating a fuck ton of sugar.
Nice.
Right. So my rant's gone off on a little bit of a so one of the issues with the bathhouses closing, because they do close in this country, and famously Henry VIII is the one that closes the bathhouses. Now these bathhouses, the stews of London, lots of them would be connected to bakehouses because the heat of the ovens could heat the water. So it's really great economy. And you've got loads of images of the medieval period of people in these bathhouses, full body immersion. They're all talking, they're all chatting. And you see that everybody's naked. Women have their hair covered, except for some. A woman in a bathhouse who does not have her hair covered is supposedly a sex worker. So one of the things that does start to happen is that it becomes a belief that people are contracting syphilis in the bagnios, the stews, the bathhouses. And that's possibly that is happening because the places where these are set up, because they're connected to bakehouses maybe, so stews aren't in palaces. They are in places where you also have potentially bear baitings, and in later centuries, theatres happening. So it's also a place where there are brothels. The bathhouse can be a place of sex work, but so can a brothel. So these are locations where heavy drinking happens, gambling happens, fighting happens, fucking happens, and so disease spreads.
And also it's a bit like the coffee houses later on. If people are gathering and chatting and you're a monarch who's implementing radical change, you don't really want people, getting together and having a big discussion about it.
Yeah.
Good point.
So the mixed bathing is banned by Henry VIII in 1546. So as you say, right in that time where he's also making loads of other changes and taking lots of other things under his control. So this then gets and it's entirely possible that from this point, regular Londoners start to smell worse than they would have smelled in the medieval period.
Because now they haven't got access to, they haven't really got access to clean water at this point. Proper clean water, have they?
You're not going to pop in the Thames, are you? You dissolve.
I mean, there are other rivers, but they are, depending on where you are in London.
Yeah, I'm thinking if you're sort of in the Southwark area, for example.
It's going to be hard. It's going to, unless you've got well water, but even then with well water, you probably aren't. It's going to be hard to do full body immersion. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, it's a lot of water.
But it doesn't mean they don't care.
Mm.
Because now we're going to circle back to miasma. Miasma literally means evil air. It's the notion that people get sick because of bad air, and they know the air is bad because of bad smells. And I just want to point out that it's very easy to laugh at our ancestors for thinking that people get sick because stuff smells bad. But let's be clear.
That's still our instinct, surely.
It is. And also, stuff that makes you sick often does smell bad. But also, if we hadn't had a belief of miasma, would anybody have gone looking for germs?
It's really not that far.
It's not that far. It's a misunderstanding. The four humours, for example, being liquids that need to be in balance, this notion of the body running on liquids, it's incorrect. But if we hadn't had that step, would we have gone looking for the circulatory system? Would we have gone looking?
Yeah. What really fascinates me about the humours is how long that was the dominant medical.
Yeah.
That lasted
classical
through,
world.
Yeah. The Greece and Romans. And so in application, I feel like it can't have been that far off, because otherwise it wouldn't have been able to be maintained for that long. And I love that idea of balance. That is,
sure.
That's spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose it also encouraging people to maybe not eat the most varied diet, but slightly more varied than they might have otherwise. And leaching and bleeding and things like that, and emetics and diuretics and cupping and all of that kind of stuff. If for certain conditions, it would have been valuable, is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean they probably pushed that bit a bit too far sometimes.
Yeah, they overbled some people for sure.
Back because I have this misalignment of one of my discs from a car accident, and I've had the cupping. You come out, you've got these big wells on your back, and it was actually when they pulled them off, it was like, oh, actually, yeah, that's quite. It almost felt like something went pop and released with it. It was bizarre.
Look,
but
I don't know how acupuncture works. I don't know how acupuncture works. When it was suggested to me, I was like, my physiotherapist said, let me try acupuncture. And I was like, he's given up. He's given up. That's what's happened. he's thrown everything at the wall. Because I didn't, but I tell you what, it had a massive benefit for me. Didn't fix everything, but it had a massive benefit for me. And also, we're still learning things about the human body every day. It was about, I want to say 10 years ago, they found out, I believe, that there's an extra ligament in the knee. So when you tear your cruciate ligaments, you've got the interior and exterior cruciate ligaments. There's one, I think, that goes underneath the kneecap they didn't know about. Because when you tear interior or exterior cruciate ligament, that one always goes as well. It always goes.
Oh my God.
So when it's so dangerous.
Know that. Like, it's crazy.
Well, the notion that we've got to a stage where we know everything. That's so dangerous. And we
still don't know how general anaesthetic works, which is not horrifying.
We don't know how birth happens.
No.
We don't know the mechanism.
Why it starts. We don't know.
Why it starts, no.
So one of the reasons why, for example, they have now thought that the repair of cruciate ligaments is so risky and also tends to not be very effective is because they're never reattaching that extra ligament because they didn't know it was there.
That's crazy.
So that's why it fails so often.
Wow.
So even our own knee, we're still learning things. And also everybody's body's different. People have that vestigial tendon here. If you do this and you've got a tendon here, a sticky out bit. If you fold your arm in, it should stick out. That does nothing. It's a vestigial tendon.
What are you doing? Nothing.
But if you tear a tendon, they'll cannibalize. If you tear a tendon, they'll cannibalize that one.
Spare.
It's a spare.
Spare one.
But my husband hasn't got it. It's like wisdom teeth.
He's screwed then.
He's more evolved.
He's more evolved.
He's more evolved. He doesn't need it.
So we are still learning loads of things about our body.
Damn it.
But they believe that bad smells can make you sick. So with all of this in mind, what is the chance that people are going to willingly walk around or be around people who fucking stink?
Also, they don't just smell. I mean, I don't know. Say you've had, how do I say this without sounding like, but I don't know, you've had a long journey, you've traveled somewhere, if you've ever been backpacking, and it can be a few days until you can get a wash. You don't just smell. Like,
No,
things can get, skin starts to
Feel a bit icky.
feel icky or sore or itchy or whatever. Like, it's not, there's discomfort.
There is
Physical
discomfort
there.
from being unclean. There absolutely is. So people are going to be washing their faces, they're washing their hands before meals. And let's remember as well that the notion of ritual cleanliness is one that is baked into Christianity. What do we think baptism is? Like there is bathing and that connection and cleanliness are implicitly tied. So we've got the basin viewer. They're going to be washing their hands, the bits, the light catches, etc. They're dressed in linen underneath all of their garments, including Hollywood, any corsetry. No one wears stays, pairs of bodies, later corsets. No one wears those next to their skin. Never. Doesn't happen. You wear linen underneath. I don't care if it's Tudor England, Georgian England, or wherever, or the Victorian period, the Edwardian period, whatever. They are not wearing corsetry next to their skin. Second bugbear. And also, Bridgerton, why are they tight-laced in Empire line gowns? What's happening? Anyway, that's a side note.
Which costume designers have a lot to answer for in terms of these perceptions. It would have been a costume designer who decided William the Conqueror is going to have a dirty neck at his coronation.
And maybe it was like fire,
just about
like smoke, because he just set something alight.
He set something on fire, yeah. Well, no, I doubt they have much context for it. It's what will look good on the screen. Isn't the Tudor hats? We have this impression that sorry, like the French cap or whatever, that it sat
French
up.
hood, yeah.
French hood, excuse me. Instead of what it really did was sit sort of back, but on screen that doesn't show.
That's debated still, whether the French hoods are upright. And depending on which interpreter or costumier you speak to, they'll do different things because the portraits don't make it clear.
No, because it's the same problem, I suppose.
Yeah.
They'd have to depict them slightly further if they were worn further back and flatter. They'd still have to depict them up, otherwise. Same difference, same issue.
Yeah, I mean,
we will
that's debated as to whether they lay flat or whether they stick up. So
it's a matter of style.
And how far back you wear it and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah,
and maybe
for sure.
up your hairline as well, that you might.
I mean that image, that famous image of Elizabeth Woodville, where it looks like she has no hair because she's under her hennin. That's because her hairline's been plucked, because that's fashionable. And also people have perfumes. It's very fashionable in the Tudor period to carry a pomander. There's stories about Cardinal Wolsey having an orange that's hollowed out, that's filled with spices that he carries around to see off pestilential airs. That image of the plague doctor with the beak, that's not medieval. That's later. That's early modern. That's the early modern plague doctor. He's got herbs in that snout because perfumes like that are thought to see off disease. So people try and perfume their bodies. People carry perfumed pomanders. Now, do I think that could have been a fairly offensive smell? Because let's be clear, we haven't got antiperspirant. People do still sweat. They are attempting to deal with their body odor, but maybe not as much. I'm not saying they smell as nice as we can smell with, industrial grade modern cleansers and things, but they are trying. And perhaps actually they may smell slightly strong of various perfumes and herbs and kissing comforts and all the rest of it. We might be like, okay, Lynx
Take a bath in
effects.
that, couldn't
Yeah,
Like there's a part of me that what I think the Tudor court probably smelled like is a boys' boarding school dorm of 15-year-olds. So it's kind of sweat and desperation with a bit of Lynx Africa. Other fragrances are available. That's
But not to 15-year-old boys.
I'm not saying the past smelt pleasant. I'm just saying that people aren't rolling in horse dung for the fucking
Not
fun of it.
caring. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not giving a shit. Like, oh, I've got some horse shit on me. Oh well, off I go to Hampton Court Palace. Tra la la. I've beshitted up my silk garments. Oh well, tra la la, fiddle dee. Let's go and give this ring to the king. That's not happening. That isn't happening.
Well,
I think, also people are taking care of their hair, lice combs for beards, for hair. They're trying to get rid of the lice. People would sleep with like a little bit of fur to try and get the lice to jump on that rather than you. People are trying to clean their homes. They're lime washing their walls. They have, there are in later years, there's like fumigating smoke bombs. They try and get rid of bugs and things because they know that these sorts of smells, although we know why, they do connect with people being sick. There's a reason why the Normans, cutting edge Norman technology, is to have garderobes off the side of your castle so that people aren't shitting in pots and keeping it in a time of siege. You want excrement out, you want fresh water in, because they understand that if you don't have those things, people get sick really quickly. I mean, they go to war. They see how many of their kings die of dysentery, how many kings shit themselves to death on a regular basis. They have an understanding and they can connect to smell.
And they connect those two, don't they? Because the garderobes would be used to hang the like heavy woolen sort of clothing that they can
Aerobic, yeah.
So that the idea being the smell of the garderobe would see off the bugs from their clothing. Yeah.
Moths, it literally guardian robes, it protects the robes. Yeah. Ladies are combing down their hair. They're also braiding it up, which does keep it cleaner for longer. Let's also think about the notion that a king or a knight or whatever is going to leave the battlefield in his armor that then gets taken off, right? That's covered in mud and shit and blood and whatever else. Underneath your armor, you are wearing padded clothing, like heavy duty padded clothing, gloves, shirt, trousers, coif. Having done interpretation work when those gambesons, they're called gambesons, are worn throughout a summer, they don't dry in between wearers.
Oh.
By the end of summer, that shit can stand up by itself and walk around. The notion that somebody's coming off the battlefield and then going to court and not washing after having worn a gambeson in war, impossible. You would be itchy. You would absolutely reek. You need to wash. You think they're going to wash the armor but not themselves? Come on, they're washing. Of course they are. So I'm getting really rage-filled here. Apologies. I'm just going to tone it down a bit. Just going to... Because the thing is, at the same time, I think almost everybody listening to this, I am preaching to the choir. Like this, I am preaching to the converted. All of our lovely listeners live in this world long enough that none of this is new information to you. I'm almost sure. Maybe some bits of it, but this is something you could share with the people who talk about how, oh yes, in medieval England, everybody smelt of shit and they were disgusting and their teeth all fell out of their head. In fact, for medieval people, when they've been exhumed, their teeth are in much better condition than their early modern counterparts because no sugar.
No
Or if they
sugar.
have got sugar, it's medicinal and it's for the very, very wealthy.
Mm.
So yeah, medieval people's teeth. It has calculus on it. Calculus. Tartar.
Yeah.
Like
for sure.
Okay.
And it's also, they're very ground down. Like that's something we see really ground down. But that is because bread flour is adulterated with all kinds of fucked up shit. So it's like grinding your teeth down in that way. And there is damage to teeth. Teeth get broken. Teeth do get infected. But the quality of the teeth far better in the medieval period than the early modern period. But I think it's telling that, at least by tradition, a gift that is attributed as having gone from Henry VIII to Anne Boleyn is a kind of beauty kit, if you will. It looks like a little cannon. Have you seen this? It's gold or silver gilt, and it contains an ear scoop, toothpicks, and a nail clippers or cleaners. And it said that he gives this to her on a ribbon as part of their courtship. So this sort of personal cleanliness kit is something that a king is giving to his lover. So this is part of everyday conversation. Anyway, I think I've perhaps ranted for long enough.
The ear scoop thing is interesting. You see those on sort of like the Mary Rose and all their kits that they've got. So there you go, sailors on the Mary Rose. So hairy ass blokes. They're bless them. Sorry, with all due respect, but that's the impression. That they wouldn't care about their appearance. They wouldn't care about their cleanliness, and they clearly do because they've got personal kits with them for all this thing that for taking care of themselves, because there is going to be a link between looking after yourself and staying healthy. It's interesting when you said, what made me think as well about the bathhouses, especially when there were bathhouses, especially Roman times. I always think about this because they do have all these stages of bathing, and obviously it wasn't for everyone, unfortunately, in society, but a lot of people had access to it. Because I don't think we've got this back, is the mental health part of bathing. That's stopping for a while,
Yeah.
And I know some people are better at it than others, but if you're just a shower person like me, most of the time, and it's just like it's very functional.
I very rarely have a shower. I nearly always have a bath.
You're probably better. But there's that mental health element of bathing. I wonder if as a society, whether we have that back or not. I don't know.
I think it relaxes my body, so I have aches and pains with various things, and like I have a sort of bit of arthritis in my hip, and it never hurts when I'm in the water.
Yeah, I think they have brought back the kind of hammam Turkish bath thing. There's quite a few around London.
It's an elite thing, though, isn't it? Well, like a spa is an elite thing.
I've got dirty stories about spas. So
I do go to a spa. Mine's not dirty.
Where the Roman baths were considered very clean, weren't they? And even though we now have all this chemical, so I know this because I used to work in a luxury health spa for a little while. And so people always think that if you can smell chlorine, that means the water's clean. Now, obviously, we want to have clean water, but free chlorine, so unused chlorine, only has a very, very faint smell. And it becomes more smelly as the water becomes dirty. Chlorine becomes dirtier, which means it's being used in the water. So the stronger the smell of chlorine, people always think, there's lots of chlorine, it must be really clean. No, it's the exact opposite. And if you get to the point where the smell is strong, it is burning your eyes, you are virtually killing yourself. And that's a bit of an exaggeration. It's people soup, isn't it? And if there's foam on top, look how foamy it is. No, that's other people's grease, hairs, dirt, dead skin. And also, if you go anywhere and there's anything that looks orange, that's body fat.
My God. People are shedding body fat.
It's body fat. Yeah, apparently. I didn't know that. Yeah, it's
Well,
body fat.
how?
No,
How
I'm not sure.
does that work?
I forget
If
the
you could
actual
just sweat
process.
body fat out, I'm pretty
Well,
sure
no,
we'd have
it's
a way
because
of working that.
I worked in this place. We had to do all these courses about the chemicals and the water testing and the different body fluids. And yeah, if it's orange, I can't remember about the process, but it is body fat. So if you have any of those, if you can smell chlorine or there's anything that looks like slightly like that, it's got the plague. You need to get out the people soup or not go in it in the first place.
But also, do have a wash. Do keep washing. Because the thing is,
take your time over it.
Yeah, the thing is, they have reopened some of the old baths, East London baths. They are now.
I think I've seen one that I wanted
Ironmonger Row, York Hall.
Maybe I follow them on Instagram because I used to work at Woodstock. Not Woodstock. What was it called? Oh God, I can't remember. I worked there for 2 years while I was at university, and it was an old Victorian baths, which and it had a massive swimming pool which had been covered over. They had 2 swimming pools, and they had a massive one that had been covered over and made into the sports hall. And then they had the smaller one, which had been kept as a pool, and then there were individual rooms where then they'd put running machines. Really old, beautiful building, but little rooms with running machines and whatever in. And all of those had been kind of the individual baths, bathrooms, literally. But people would also go there to wash their clothes as well. So the whole thing was sort of in, and the building was beautiful. Anyway, so the one I found on Instagram just reminded me so much of that. That I want to go and have a look. I want to go and have a look where I used to work as well and see what that's like now. But yeah, but they worked. I think they seem to have worked for people.
Yeah, I mean, in the kind of, I suppose what is known as the Victorian back-to-backs, lots of which we lost during the Blitz in London. People would they might bath out of the copper in their own homes, but they'd also go to these bathhouses and they'd take the whole family and they'd go and wash and all the rest of it. And these were in some ways based on Roman baths, Turkish hammams, etc. And we lost them for a few years, and now they're coming back. But of course, now they're coming back at a price premium.
Yeah, it's a luxury thing now.
Of course they are. But it is, they are nice to go to. However, the ones that I've seen, they tend to be as part of. Have you come across the Better Gym group?
Yes,
which I think is subsidized. So they tend to be the people that own these old Victorian baths. But if you ever go to Budapest, go to one of their Turkish baths as well. They are chef's kiss.
Oh yeah, I'd love stuff like that back.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's actually quite local.
Right, so
you need to be able to just go for an hour in the morning.
Yeah.
But
yes. I do want to kind of just apologize for just ranting.
No, we like a rant here on history.
I think it's really angry.
Because you know what? The whole it just never made sense anyway. The whole thing that Elizabeth is supposed to have said, I have 4 baths a year or whatever. At that point, what is the fucking point?
Yeah.
Like you don't get progressively. Well, I suppose you do get progressively dirtier, but like you'll be dirty within a day or 2. So what does it matter that you then wait another 30, 40 days for your bath? Do you see what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense. If you're only going to be asked to have one 4 times a year, why are you even bothering?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, of course, the linen she's wearing would have meant that she probably doesn't get dirty in a day or 2. She has considerably longer than that. But on top of that, she may have only immersed herself in water 4 times a year. That may have been the truth. But she's washing every day.
Interim.
Linen covers. It doesn't cover your bits.
No, but you wipe yourself with linen cloths.
Okay.
You rub you rub yourself with linen, which also will exfoliate the body.
Linen sounds incredibly useful. Bring back linen.
Yeah. Bring back
they would definitely, in between hair washes, they would definitely rub the hair with linen to get the oil out.
Okay, so there's now this trend for silk caps.
Yeah.
Bonnets.
Yeah.
that we sleep in, which I'm thinking
Yeah.
of because my hair always breaks. So would linen be just as good?
It wouldn't do the same thing.
Coif.
It wouldn't do the same
They'll go
thing.
to
So
bed in a coif.
the linen coif.
But it's for the daytime.
Oh, well, no, I'm
linen-
thinking for sleeping, but
Well, they would wear linen coif in the daytime as well, underneath their hood. The linen coif would absorb oils and things. So the silk bonnet in many ways keeps your oils and your hair intact, so it stops breakage. Linen won't do that. Linen probably might cause breakage actually because it's rougher.
Maybe not then.
But what it does is
No.
it would take the oil out.
Right.
yeah,
Silk will probably
I'll
keep the
go in
oil
on
in.
silk then. Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew
I
it.
suppose a lot of what causes breakage nowadays is things that they wouldn't have been doing, like bleaching. Or peroxide, heat, like, you know, excessive use of heat with blow drying and or straightening and or curling. I suppose maybe that counteracted some of the effects if the linen was a bit abrasive and causing breakage.
It wasn't. Yeah, that wasn't the issue so much.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, they did have, you know, they did have very, very long hair as well. So they would braid it up. And I don't think they necessarily care as much about breakage as we perhaps do, because I think if you do, depending on how you braid your hair up, maybe they're braiding it in a very protective style. But you know, when you have your hair pulled back, you are going to get some traction breakage. But they don't necessarily care about that because they pluck their foreheads anyway.
They like the big forehead look.
But yeah,
so, okay.
Essentially, people washed. People cared about how they smelt. That's my little.
That's the correct summary of cleanliness in history. Fabulous.
Let us know your cleansing rituals in the comments.
Yes, we want to hear.
Are you shower emoji or bath emoji?
I'm both. I'm both. So I bath. When I'm in my bath, I do my exfoliation, and then I'll wash my hair, and then I'll wash my conditioner out under the shower, and I'll do a body wash.
Yeah, if you're not exfoliating, then sitting in the bath is a bit gritty.
But also conditioner, if you try and you can't get it all out, and it's better just to get in the shower and get it all out. Do you?
Yeah, because
my hair goes to my bum though.
In the water to get most of it off, and then I have a special cup thing and I rinse it with water out the tap as well.
Oh yeah, okay. But you have to have a way of doing it with
you
clean
can get
water.
most of it out.
If I sit in the bath with this,
it's going to be there for ages. You may as well just sit in the
shower. It's really, really knotty. Yeah. So I love washing my hair. It's one of my favourite things.
On that
note, what's happening next week?
Well, next week, Catherine, you are going to be telling us about the myth of the size of the army at Towton.
And other possible not correct Towton related stuff.
Nice.
Love
it. Okay, fabulous. Looking forward to that.
Kat, tell us the other things.
If you liked what you've seen, then let us know by hitting the like button. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon beside the subscribe button, and then select all. That should tell you when we've next uploaded, and if we're going live, which we have got some lives coming up as well. So make sure you're all subscribed. Also, though, because this can be finicky, I'll also give you the information about where you can find us elsewhere. If you've liked what you've seen, though, please head over to www. That's a lot of W's. buymeacoffee.com/had podcast, because you can show your appreciation not just with likes and shares, with money as well.
And love.
But money.
That's real
money as well. Money. So you can do that. If you buy a Winnebago, that helps us. But you can also join our close friends. That's on Instagram. If you see the logo for Had at the top in a circle and it's got a green bit around it, you're already our close friend. It also means that Catherine has found something depraved to share with you. It's usually history related and or beaver related. Sometimes history beavers. It's a melding of the two.
Occasionally, yes, to come across a history beaver.
It is a little look into what our group chat is like. It's a good time. You can also please do head over and find out more at our Substack. That is a place, if YouTube's not notifying you of stuff, Substack will be helpful. historyafterdarkhub.substack.com. That's also where you're going to get links to this as a podcast. If you are listening as a podcast, I know you can't like and subscribe, but you can leave a review for 5 stars. That's very helpful for us. If you don't think it's worth 5 stars, then not every review needs to be shared.
Jog on.
You could keep that. You can keep that. Do you know who you can tell? You can tell your friends in the chat. Not here though, just on your own WhatsApp. Thanks. That's great. You'll also find information about our merch, Warboner merch, History After Dark merch, Roger the Beaver merch, No Feet for on the Internet merch, and also we have got new merch. It's going to be ready for our next series. Hold on to your butts, but also make sure you're at the Substack, because that is the place we will be announcing it first and foremost. Oh, also in the description box, our individual social medias. Follow us. They're good times. They aren't as vulgar as here. So some light relief from me saying fuck every 4 seconds.
Fabulous. Thanks, Kat.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a good time.
Is that everything?
I think so.
All right then.
Just
In which
time to say
case,
goodbye.
be good. And if you can't be good, be careful. And if you can't be careful, for the love of all that is holy, do not get caught. We're going to leave in 3, 2, 1. Bye.